Bears, clowns, cats, butterflies, demons and angels cavort along the banks of the canal, dancing, laughing and twirling their capes in ceaseless balletic arcs. Music drifts through the night, from the square up ahead, growing louder and more frenetic as I approach. My feet stamp along with the beat. A black and white checkered mask looms out of the crowd. Man or woman? I have no way of telling. It points directly at me and beckons. A strange force compels me forward, as if under a spell. I have no choice but to follow. The light-footed creature tiptoes onto a tiny bridge, stands in the middle, claps lightly in time to the music, then runs backwards, drawing its arms together, suggesting an embrace. Aroused, and afraid of losing sight of this hypnotic stranger, I cleave from the crowd and speed up, breaking into a run over the ancient stone edifice after the disappearing figure. A flash of white down an alleyway catches my eye, and I give chase, my breath ephemeral clouds in the February chill. Moonlight barely penetrates these tiny back streets, and when it does, merely illuminates skeins of gauzy mist raising from Venetian waters, creating a theatrical dry ice effect. A whistle from above makes me look up. The china-faced harlequin, high above me on a crumbling balcony, lit by an arcane street lamp, genuflects in an elaborate bow. I tilt my head back as far as it will go and stare up at the apparition. How did it get up there so fast? Impossible, unless whoever it is has wings. And how am I supposed to follow? I pace backwards across the deserted street until my back grazes the stone wall and I fix my attention on the balcony, a stage no bigger than a dining table, as the performance begins. The harlequin spreads its arms wide, revealing the dramatic scarlet lining of its black and white cape. Each arm makes a sweeping gesture, once left, once right, acknowledging an imaginary audience. The head rolls in figures of 8, searching for someone in the crowd. Then, with cat-like precision, it looks directly at me. One hand floats to its mouth and it blows me a kiss. I press my fingers to my mouth and offer them upwards and blow one in return. The harlequin clutches at its heart with one hand, the other reaches out to snatch the kiss from the ether. The clenched fist remains in the air while the head is bowed in gratitude. Long hair, black as midnight, spills around the frozen features. This is a woman, now I'm sure. With a slow, ritualistic gesture, the figure brings her fist to her mouth and raises her chin in ecstasy. Once more the arms widen as if receiving rapturous applause, and then the figure bows to the left, the right and the centre. She brings both hands to her painted mouth and blows an expansive kiss to her public. Her arms mime a giant heart shape as she embraces her watchers and holds them close. She repeats the gesture, her beautifully chiselled mask, somehow evoking modesty, pride, love and passion without a single movement. The third time, her hands return to her heart, they are no longer empty. In the left, a single red rose, striking against the white diamond on the front of her cape. In the right, a handgun, aimed upwards beneath her chin. She kisses the rose and lets it fall from the balcony onto the street below. I watch it tumble to the ground, its petals scattering on the cobbles. The shocking report of a gunshot whips my head upwards. Against a blood-spattered backdrop, her body crumples over the stone balustrade. Long black hair dangles from the remnants of her blasted skull and the white diamonds of her cape turn dark. Something breaks at my feet. Her mask, cracked into shards. I lift one to the light. Her mouth, painted in a silent, frozen smile. He jerked upwards with a gasp, his torso covered in sweat. The sheet fell to his waist and his breathing rasped in the silence of the bedroom. He stared at the mirror in the opposite wall, replaying the flamboyant brutality of the dream. The monochrome cape, the crimson rose, the decaying balcony, and those scarlet china lips. In the mirror, his own face reflected back at him through the roseate light of dawn. Beside him, the girl shifted, curled up like a dormouse. He laid a hand on her shoulder to ease her back to sleep. When her breathing had deepened, he slid out of bed and used the torch on his phone to locate his clothes. He backtracked, recalling the feral passion of the night before. His jeans lay in the bedroom doorway, his shirt on the living room couch, and he found his jacket in the entrance hall. His wallet was still in the inside pocket, contents intact. Two problems presented themselves. His boxer shorts and shoes were missing. Underwear he could manage without, but there was no way he was going to tramp the streets of Venice barefoot. He closed the bedroom door silently and risked switching on a lamp. He found one sock dangling from the lampshade. The other could have been anywhere. His brogues, dusty from the previous night's dancing, lay half under the sofa. In the absence of his boxers, he was forced to go commando. Time to leave. On the glass coffee table, he spotted her handbag, all quilted leather, gold chain, and to his amusement, his own initials. He opened it, took out a lipstick, and wrote on the table, "Grazie, CC, kiss, kiss." The front door creaked as he crept away into the early morning light. He wended his way back to his hotel through the detritus of last night's Carnevale, mist wreathing over midnight blue canals, which brought back his dream. His subconscious had ways of making itself heard, so he did not simply dismiss his nocturnal visions as the after effects of a night on the town. Turning his collar up against the frosty air, he concentrated on revisiting each lurid element to articulate what he'd seen. A caped reveller in black and white with a classic mask at once beautiful and unnerving. That performance, just for him. The rose, the gun, blood dripping from the long black hair onto the petals. He crossed a little bridge over Ria de San Andrea and came to a sudden halt as he saw the sign. Albergo Arlecchino, Hotel Harlequin. The morning chill was forgotten as he stared at the multicoloured joker. Harlequin. In the dream, he had thought of her as a harlequin, but now, awake and lucid, he knew harlequins were male, colourful characters, figures of fun, not a black and white image of bloody suicide. And that was when it clicked. He broke into a run, sprinting through grey-littered streets past empty cafe tables and overflowing bins. It took him 14 minutes to reach his apartment, during which time he had worked the whole thing out. Out of breath after leaping up 2 flights of stairs, he opened the safe and fired up his laptop. He logged into PIN and entered his high-level access code. 10 seconds later, he received a second code via his mobile and punched that into the security portal. After speaking his name into the microphone and allowing the camera to compare his right eye to his left, the police intelligence network granted him permission to enter. Sweaty and uncomfortable after racing across the city, wearing one sock and no underwear, he adjusted himself and began his search. It took him 3 minutes to review the entire Code Red report on potential terror attacks during a major European national festival. Intelligence services had earmarked suspected agitators with allegiance to 3 right-wing groups and intercepted a certain amount of traffic which pointed to Venice as a potential target. As a high-level undercover agent fluent in Italian, he'd been the natural choice, tasked with locating this gang and preventing a terrorist action. Venice at party time. Perhaps he'd thrown himself into the celebrations with a bit too much gusto. But he had done his homework, and now it began to pay off. One of the names under surveillance was Zanny 2, whose avatar on the chat site was a coat hanger bearing a black shirt. This faceless commentator had made occasional references to My Darling Columbine, leading the police to suspect a planned mass shooting. He printed out all the comments from Zanny 2 and sat in the kitchen with an espresso, underlining what he could see as an emerging pattern. It was not yet 7 in the morning, but he was so close that the excitement buzzing through his whole body rendered the caffeine surplus. Harlequin. A character from the theatrical commedia dell'arte tradition involving 2 characters named Zanny. The first Zanny took the lead, driving the plot, backed up by his comic sidekick. The second Zanny was a trickster clown in a diamond, colourful, patterned costume, half masked, known as Arlecchino, or Harlequin. His love was for Columbina, although he slaked his lust where he could. Decoding the simple disguises became child's play. He identified Zanny 2 collaborators from their use of similar terminology, and put them through a simple program to search for lexical overlap. What words were these guys using and what did they mean? The first, littorio, an Italian emblem from the days of Mussolini. Intelligence had correctly labelled the term as the terrorists' utopian ideal of a return to fascism. The second, Colombina, was the name of Harlequin's true love. This was harder to pin down, as all four collaborators used it differently. He decided to identify it as Venice herself. Thirdly, la spiacevole sorpresa, the unpleasant surprise. He recoiled in horror, his cup clattering into the saucer. It wasn't a shooting Xanadu was planning. It was a bomb. He reached for his phone but hesitated. Yes, he now knew what and where and why, but the crucial element was missing. When? He scrutinised the exchanges again and picked out keywords. Glory, right, joy, fight, people, dove, angel. He stopped and reread, Il volo dell'angelo, the flight of the angel. He checked the date on his watch, smacked his palm on the table and snatched up the phone. He hit number 7 on his speed dial list, typing his notes into PIN as he waited for a reply. Good morning, sir. How can I help you? Wake him up. I've got bad news.